Hey guys, what's up? We are back with another episode of Let's Discuss, a series on my channel where I just talk about random entertainment topics like film, music, TV, awards season, anything entertainment. It's a very broad label, so anything that falls under that. And today we are back at it again with another episode talking about WandaVision. Yep, the new episode just released today. Well, like at 2 a.m., which I did watch at 2 a.m., but I'm done recording reviews at 3 a.m. It's just a disaster. It's a disaster, so I waited. It's now 11 a.m. and I just rewatched it for the second time and now I'm back doing a review. So let's get into it, shall we? Spoilers for episode 7 of WandaVision and all of WandaVision, pretty much. So if you haven't seen any of it and you don't want to be spoiled, please leave, because I will spoil it. The first things first, I think this episode is the 2000s to 2010s comedy era. The title credits kind of, I think I've never watched this show really, but it gave me The Office vibes. But then I think the actual like style of the episode itself with all the interviews and like the random zoom-ins are from Modern Family. So yes, I think that's the two episodes they're pulling from for inspiration. And I think this is the end of the sitcom episodes. So now we're in the home stretch. We're going. But yeah, I think this episode was one of the funniest, or no, the funniest episode of the series. It was a blast. The interviews were so funny. The way they like had that music under the flashback of Wanda expanding the border and all the sword agents running away, that was hilarious. And then Vision's interviews were funny. And there was that great one-liner with Agnes, where at first she's telling the kids, because she's about to go have them at her house, she's about to go babysit them, and she's like, don't worry, I don't bite. And then it cuts to her interview and she's like, I actually did bite a kid once. Comedy, I love it. It was so funny. Maybe it's because I'm more used to this era of sitcoms, because I was not around in the 50s and the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, barely the 90s. So this era of sitcom is what I'm most comfortable and familiar with. It was a fun episode. And meanwhile, Wanda is losing her control of this reality rapidly. She can't stop her like furniture sets from morphing into something else. It either goes back in time or it goes forward in time. Even her food, like the jug of almond milk went back to like vitamin A, just regular milk, and a whole bunch of stuff was just freaking out, and she had to keep like fixing it. And then she had her little interview where she was like, I don't understand why everything's falling apart and why I can't fix it. I think it has a lot to do with her mental state at this moment. Wanda is increasingly reaching her breaking point with the amount of people that are trying to break into her reality, trying to destroy it. It mirrors and it shows in this reality and how she can't control anything anymore. She's just losing it. It's not a good time. But who comes to save the day? Agnes! We'll get to Agnes in a second. Don't you worry. We'll talk about Agnes. I always knew about Agnes, but we'll get to her in a second. See, the two biggest things that happened in this episode were Monica and Agnes. So let's get into Monica first. Monica has powers. We all knew she would, because if you just, go on social media and see what people have been saying and about her casting and her being in the show, and if you read the comics, you would know that Monica Rambeau is also known as many things. Captain Marvel. She was the first Captain Marvel. Photon, Spectrum, Pulsar. She's a superhero. She's one of the most powerful superheroes in the MCU. She has the power to, I think, manipulate energy. She can like turn her whole body into pure energy, and she can like manipulate any kind of wave of energy, like radio waves, microwaves, ultraviolet, things like that. She can fly at the speed of light. She's powerful. She's powerful. So yeah, we are now seeing her get her powers in the series, because if you remember from the last episode, Darcy tells Monica that the radiation surrounding fake Westview, the reality that Wanda's created, is changing Monica's body on a molecular scale. It's changing her cells and everything. And so in this episode, we see Monica go through the barrier a third time. And as she's going through, you see she's fighting it. It's trying to pull her out because, she doesn't belong. And you can hear voices from her past, from her mom, from Captain Marvel. Like Captain Marvel's that line where she was like, when they were handing out kids, they gave your mom the toughest one, Lieutenant Trouble, and her mom saying that she's the most powerful person she ever knew. And you can see these like hues of blue and purple, which purple is relevant, we'll get to it. And she's really fighting and she's struggling, but then she summons this inner strength that she knows she's always had, and her eyes start turning blue, and she busts through the barrier. Her eyes are blue now, and what does that mean? She has powers. Yup, she's getting her energy powers. Wanda's little hex, the hex that Wanda has created, gave her her energy powers. That means a lot for the MCU. One, it means we are getting a new black superhero that is hella powerful in her natural hair. I can't wait to see it. But that also means mutants, because what this means is that Wanda's hex has the ability to mutate a person's body and give them enhanced abilities, give them superpowers. If it did it for Monica, I can only imagine what it's going to do for everyone else, what it's going to do for these residents that have been stuck in it forever. I mean, probably, I'm not sure if Marvel will go the route of giving all the residents of Westview powers, but maybe if there is some energy blast from when, you know, I'm assuming this reality will eventually have to come down. It will. So maybe when it does come down, it releases this surge of energy that goes everywhere, and, you know, certain people will become affected by it to the point where they become mutants and they become enhanced individuals. So maybe this is the introduction of mutants to the MCU. I think we all know that that's what's going to be happening, since in the House of N comics, Wanda gets rid of the mutants, and this is loosely based on the House of N comics, and in that she gets rid of mutants, but maybe here she's going to create mutants. Who knows? Maybe we're getting the X-Men. Maybe. But yeah, so Monica has her powers now. She kind of just ran up to Wanda to try and warn her about Vision, because her and Jimmy find out that Hayward, Idiot Sword Agent number 1, is using... He wants to get to the Hex. He wants to get inside because he wants to get Vision out. He wants to use Vision as a weapon. And so Monica runs in trying to warn Wanda about that. That was a flop attempt. Obviously, Wanda's upset and she nearly kicks her out again. Obviously it wasn't gonna work, but yet she ran in, no plans, head empty, and it was a flop. But then you know who comes out and tells Monica to go away? Agnes. Why? Because her real name is Agatha Harkness. Ooh, we all already knew this, but when they revealed it to be Agatha, everyone still was like, ah! Even though we all knew. And so yes, Monica's out there trying to get Wanda to understand that she needs to take the reality down, that they're trying to get out of Vision, but obviously it doesn't work. And then Agnes comes out and is like, hey, miss, I think you overstayed your welcome. And then she takes Wanda inside her house. And inside Wanda's house, if you remember, Agnes was babysitting the twins, and Wanda sees the plates of PB&J sandwiches, I assume, and the empty glasses of juice. And there's some kids show playing, and then she's like, oh yeah, my kids. They were here, but they are not now. So she's like, Agnes, where are the boys? And Agnes is like, oh, they're probably just in the basement playing. I don't know what kid plays in the basement. We all know that basements are not the place to be. I'm gonna go play in the front yard. I don't know about you. I'm gonna go play where there's sunlight and witnesses. I'm not gonna go play in the basement where anything can happen and no one will know about it. Yikes. But yeah, Agnes tells Wanda that they're in the basement, so Wanda goes down, she goes into the basement, and what does she find? She finds a little stone pathway to some underground crypt lair, whatever that is, some underground dungeon thing, and she goes and and there are all these vines on the side, and she goes and follows it, and she finds herself in this room where there's like bones and things, and there's like these old relics and stuff. And she's like, where are my kids? I mean, she doesn't say that, but I know she's like thinking, where are my children? And then you hear this thud, and then out comes Agnes again, and she's like, oh, Wanda. You didn't think you were the only magical girl in this town. And she's like stroking her pet rabbit, Senior Scratchy. And she's like, the name's Agatha Harkness. Nice to finally meet you, dear. And I was like, oh God, here we go. And then you see her eyes go purple. And well, first she uses her like magic to close the door, and her magic's purple. It's similar to Wanda's, but it's purple. And then I can't remember what she says to Wanda after that, but then her eyes glow, and then you see this kind of purple mist glow around Wanda's face, and it kind of like goes inside, kind of similar to how when Wanda would mind control people, she would like blow this red mist into their face, and their eyes would glow red, and that's how we know that Wanda's controlling them. So it's very similar to how Agnes is now controlling, or Agatha is now controlling Wanda. So what does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? What does this mean? This means Agatha, like we all knew from day one, is the meaning. She's the one behind all of this. They have that little tune. It's been Agatha all along. I can't sing, but that little tune, and then it takes us through all the times where she's intervened with the reality. She's the one that brought in Pietro. How? I don't know. Someone on Twitter said that this means she can reach into the multiverse and pull things out. So maybe she did reach into the multiverse and take Pietro and pluck him there to keep an eye on Wanda, to keep Wanda happy. But obviously that didn't work because Wanda was very sus. Wanda knew from the beginning not to trust him. Now she doesn't like Pietro. And then we saw that scene in episode 2 where they were doing the magic show, and she did a little something to intervene when Vision was using his powers in front of everyone's face. She did a little something late. Oh yeah, they showed the scene where they were, the scene in the last episode where Vision was like, Agnes, calm down, I'm gonna go through the border. They showed her like messing around in the mirror, showed that she was faking it the entire time, and then they showed her controlling Herb. Yeah, they're basically telling us that Agatha has been behind this all along. There's the scene, because in the episode, you know how they're doing these interviews? Wanda was talking about how she can't fix the reality as it's falling apart, and one of the crew asked her, do you think it's because you deserve all this? And Wanda's like, what? You're not supposed to talk. And in the little It Was Agatha All Along song, you see the scene where it's that same interview, but now it's showing the crew, so you can see Agatha in the back in her little director's chair watching over the interview. Yeah, Agatha's been controlling this all along, but how much of it is Agatha? Remember how I said when Monica was going through the barrier, you saw hues of blue and purple? The purple could be Agatha, which someone mentioned on Twitter, that the purple in the barrier, I guess, is probably Agatha's powers containing the barrier, or her powers that she used to control the barrier. But now my question is, how much of this is Wanda and how much of this is Agatha? Obviously, Wanda has a great deal of control over this reality, but she did say she doesn't know how any of this started. So maybe that's where Agatha comes in. Maybe Agatha, like I had this theory from day one, that Agatha coerced Wanda into making this reality using her grief with Vision as motive. And then, as many people mentioned, with the children in episode 2, and now all of a sudden Wanda has kids. If you remember in the comics, I've never read the comics, but I've watched many explaining YouTube videos, and how they said, I think it's Mephisto and Agatha worked together to steal Wanda's kids, and that plays into where Wanda's kids went. So, as you know, Wanda was looking for her kids at the end of the episode, and Agatha seemed to have done something. In the comics, Wanda's children are pieces of Mephisto's soul. Mephisto is this demon devil thing that's like a villain Wanda crosses paths with, and so did many of the other Avengers and things. So Mephisto at one point was destroyed, and his soul was broken into like 6 pieces, Infinity Stones all over again, oops, but this time demons. And it turns out that Wanda used 2 of the pieces of Mephisto's soul to create her children in the comics. And so when Mephisto comes back and is looking for his pieces of his soul to become whole again, he wants Wanda's kids because they are pieces of his soul. And so he takes Wanda's kids and he fuses them into his own body because they're pieces of him, and he becomes whole again. But unfortunately, Mephisto has to die. So they kill Mephisto, and along with him goes the twins. And of course, Wanda's very devastated. She's very traumatized. I mean, imagine your kids being a piece of a demon and then being destroyed. Yikes. That's rough. Like, no wonder she's creating this whole reality. Of course, she's a little upset. She's a little sad. Let her be. Yikes. So yeah, the kids are destroyed with Mephisto, but they are reincarnated like years. Well, they're reincarnated. I don't know if they're reincarnated as teenagers or they're like reincarnated as kids and then just grow up. Who knows? But they're reincarnated like years later, but they're separated, so they're not together anymore. They're like off in different parts. But then, oh, and Wanda. Wanda had her memories wiped of her children because, you know, that trauma was a little too much. So she no longer remembers her children. So they're all off in different places. But then they all come together. Wanda's memories become restored, and she remembers her kids, and they're all living happily ever after. They destroy Mephisto, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that's exactly how it ends, but at some point they do come back together, and they live happily ever after. What happened to Wanda's kids? We don't really know. Are they going to go the route of the comics and have Agatha turn these kids? I don't know if Agatha in the comics turned them over to Mephisto, but what if she does in the show? What if she takes the kids and gives them to Mephisto? Because, as we all said, from episode 2, for the children. This is all for the children. Agatha now has the children. What is she going to do with them? Yikes. So maybe the turn of the series is going to be, maybe Wanda will want to fight against Agatha and want to destroy the reality because she wants to protect her kids and Vision. But maybe, you know, the next episodes will just be like Wanda fighting to get her kids back, rightfully so. I wonder if she's gonna wipe Wanda's mind of the kids, because in the comics she did not remember them. They wiped her mind, or they wiped her memory. So will Agatha wipe her memory of the children? You know, when at the end of the episode when she like did that little glowy thing, that glowy purple thing into Wanda's face, is she gonna make Wanda forget she ever had kids? Wouldn't that be tragic? Wouldn't that be sad? I mean, it would probably wouldn't work, because I mean, Vision knows. Vision is well aware that he has children. What if they kill Vision? Because, you know, there's that scene with Elizabeth Olsen and she's crying on the ground and she looks like she could be probably leaning over somebody. What if they kill Vision to shut him up about these kids? What if Marvel says, F them kids? Oh my god. Poor children. Poor children. I don't know comics, but I saw bones, like old monstery bones. I was like, what if that's Mephisto's body? And she's using the kids to like reincarnate Mephisto. Oh, Jesus, that would be dark. That would be dark. Oh, yikes. That would be dark. But yeah, those are the two biggest things, in my opinion, that happened in episode 7 of WandaVision. It's the two biggest things. You got Monica has her powers now. She's now the most powerful superhero in the MCU. And this could mean the rise of mutants. Whoop. And then you got Agnes, who is really Agatha Harkness, which we all knew. Agatha Harkness is the witch that teaches Wanda how to use her powers, but then she also does some like mean things to Wanda. I think she is a part, or she works with Mephisto to like drain Wanda's powers, so maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe she wants to drain Wanda's powers and then steal her kids. How dark and awful would that be? My god. My god. Horrible. I almost forgot. Nexus. The commercial in this episode for like that antidepressant. I felt like they were dragging Wanda. It shouldn't have been funny, but I laughed a little. But the name Nexus means a lot. I went on Twitter because that's what I do when I finish watching WandaVision, and some people have pointed out, or at least reminded me, that Nexus is a gateway for the multiverse. And Nexus beings, which Wanda is, are rare beings that can affect the multiverse with their powers. Multiverse is happening, and perhaps Agatha used it to pull in Pietro. That was WandaVision episode 7. Things are going on. You got Monica's powers, you got Agatha Harkness stealing kids, maybe turning them over to Mephisto, maybe using them to reincarnate Mephisto. We don't really know. Got Wanda losing her mind. She's she's rapidly losing control of this reality. Vision seems to be at peace with, you know, what's going on. He doesn't seem to be mad at Wanda anymore, because Darcy explained to him what happened before he created this reality. So maybe he's a little bit more sympathetic. Maybe he understands now. Maybe he's like, you know what, babe, I get it. Sometimes you just have to create a reality to escape the horrible pain that this world has put you through. I get it. I'm no longer mad. I'm assuming Monica will go find Darcy now, because her plan to get to Wanda flopped horribly. The aerospace engineer, I don't think, because everyone was saying that it could be Reed Richards, but then I think the aerospace engineer was just this random lady. I don't think it was anyone. Like, it wasn't this big character that we all thought it was. Maybe we did that to ourselves. We told ourselves it would be Reed Richards or somebody, and it ended up just being a normal aerospace engineer that Monica knows. I don't know if that wasn't the person, because it seems like that was the aerospace engineer she was talking about, because she just needed them to get into the Hex, which she did, and they had the space rover. Who else would have a space rover? An aerospace engineer. So I think we set ourselves up for failure in that one, because it was not Reed Richards. It was just some lady. Good for her, but it was just some lady. So that was disappointing. But then again, we did it to ourselves, so we have no one to blame but ourselves. And apparently, the big cameo is yet to come. Like, Paul Bettany said that Evan Peters was not the big cameo. He said, this is an actor that I've been waiting to work with my entire life, and they're coming. And so I'm like, Who could it be? Paul Bettany's British, so maybe it's Ian McKellen. Maybe it's Magneto. Oops. Oop. Ah. Maybe it's not. Let's not set ourselves up for failure again, shall we? Let's not do that. So yeah, episode 7, WandaVision, funniest episode, and it had 2 of the biggest reveals. It was a good episode. Comedy was great. I think the end, it was a nice cliffhanger ending, which they seem to love to do. Love to do these cliffhanger endings. There was an end credit scene, it was very short, where Pietro shows up when Monica's like snooping around Agnes's house, and he says, "Snoopers gonna snoop." So I guess Pietro will now be used by Agnes or Agatha to watch over Monica and make sure she doesn't do anything to ruin this. So Pietro's not dead. He's still around kicking. And he's doing Agatha's bidding. Ooh. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoy this channel. Please give it a like and subscribe for more. Leave a comment about what you thought of WandaVision, if you thought of your theories after episode 7, and what you think is gonna happen next. Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. Should be fun. Can't wait for episode 8. I can't remember if there's 9 or 10 episodes. I think there's only 9, so we're getting to the end now. So yeah, should be a fun time. Should be a good time. I'll see y'all with my next video. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but there'll be one, and I'll let you know when it's coming. Peace out.
Who's been messing up everything? It's been Agatha all along. Who's been pulling every evil string?